Hello my fellow witches, sorcerers, and other magical practitioners. My name is Aiden and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my initiation into the Hekatayan. So for those of you who don't know, the Hecatayan is a book by Jack Grail. It is a series of initiations, rituals, and rites all dedicated to and under the auspicities of Queen of the Crossroads, Hecate. So I actually got this book back in 2021, I think. That's when the release of the red cover happened. It was like $89 back then. You can now probably find it on eBay for $6 billion. But yeah, people love buying this book and then reselling it for an insane price. But I won't talk about that here. The Hecatayan has been a very interesting experience. I completed the initiation not too long ago. That is a 9-day initiation followed by another 9-day period where you create a strophalos with an inks inside of it. I'm going to be talking about my experience with the initiation so far, and I want to introduce you all to the series on the Hecatayan. I will be going over all the rites, rituals, crafts, all kinds of things, all within this book system, and I will be telling you more about it and giving more in-depth information on it because one, I find it very interesting. I like hearing about other people's experiences, so I figured it'd be good to share my own with other people. Two, because there's so many things inside of here that aren't clearly explained by Jack Grail that I had to figure out myself, so I want to make it a bit more streamlined and easy for you all. And three, because I really enjoy this book and I like sharing more about my personal practice with you all. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the initiation begins 9 days before the new moon. More specifically, the new moon is the last day of this 9-day cycle, so I suppose it's around 8 days. You want to end on the new moon, that's the key. What you start off with is learning her sigil and learning how to visualize yourself at the crossroads. You go on this visualization journey throughout all the 9 days, where you gain more skills and more understanding of her sigil, her nature, as well as a couple other tools along the way. The very first night was very potent. I wrote a little bit about the first few days on my Instagram page, link in bio and all that, but I really could keep up with it, so I'm going to talk more about it here. The first day was crazy though. That night, as I was laying in bed right here, I started to feel my body start to lift. My breathing changed and the way I positioned myself also changed. It was almost like astral projecting, I think. I've only astral projected once. I know I'm a fake witch. I've only astral projected once, but it was a similar feeling to every other attempt I have had. I didn't project. It just kind of went away after a while and kind of just broke my focus. But it was very interesting, and it did show the potency of it. Also, when I burned the sigil, because for each night you're burning the sigil that you make, as I burned the sigil, it was completely consumed. Which I don't know if that had to do with the type of paper I was using or the ink, but it was just completely consumed in one gulp. Engulfed, that's what I'm trying to say. Second night was also interesting. Similar vibe, but you add in a candle, and that candle, you focus on projecting your senses towards it, then all around you. And you again build up the sense the next night. You add another candle, which is another point on the trident. And then on the fourth night, you add the last one. The fifth night, though, is the sensory art, where you start learning more about the senses. Days 2, 3, and 4, you are building more up visualization-wise. You're focusing inwards. You're really feeling her power and growing deeper and deeper in connection with her. It's hard to describe those though. It's a lot more personal. It's a lot more, internal. You're discovering more about yourself, the nature of Hecate around you, and the Titanic nature within, without, above, and below. That whole vibe. But the fifth night is the sensory art. You start pushing your senses outwards and trying to sense Hecate's presence using all 5 of your senses: sight, scent, taste, hearing, and touching. You use those 5 senses and you do an invocation to each to enliven them. For me that night, I got this revelation of 3 dogs surrounding me, next to me, and then one behind me. And I also, when I looked up, I saw all this mind's eye, by the way. I saw the image of Hecate riding on the clouds with a bunch of different creatures around her. It was very, very interesting. I very much felt her presence, and I felt her calling to me. I didn't try to do any conversation with her, because the goal of these initiations isn't particularly conversation with her. It is experiential. That's how I describe it. If you're looking for conversation with her, you would just do an invocation outside of this initiation. And I have done conversation with her before and obviously after this. The 6th night, you are creating a U aspergillum. I can actually show you that because it's not really consecrated. 1 second. This right here is my U aspergillum. So it is really simple. I'm not thinking or planning on making a video on how to make this because it's really, really simple. If y'all really want one, tell me in the comments and I will make a TikTok about it because it really takes like 2 seconds. But basically, I just got yew leaves, got a stick from outside. Also, if you're making one of these, please physically cleanse the stick. You don't want all the germs and bugs and other things that are inside of it to, you know, be a part of it. And I just took some twine that I have and wrapped it around and I got my aspergillum. But this is used to cleanse the space. You use this by taking a bowl of water with salt in it. You can probably make this in a bunch of different other ways as well, or even use seawater. I just usually do water from my water filter, and then I put some kosher salt in it. You can probably use spring water. That might be better because of its underworld connotations. It doesn't really matter in my opinion. Use as thou wilt, as I say. But you then put the aspergillum, you dip it in the water, and then you asperge the 4 corners of your room. I did the 4 corners of my room literally. You can also just do the 4 corners of your space, so like just around the space you're working in. I've also done that. Whatever works best for you all, that's what you'll want to do. Then you go and sit down right before the altar, or at least you sit down in your space. It doesn't have to be right before the altar if you don't have one. I did mine all before an altar. And then you will sing the song of Consecration, which I'll be doing a video where I sing that song for you all. That one's not going to have any video with it. It'll just be a screen where I am singing. I want to have that separate so that it's its own video and y'all can learn how to sing it and pronounce it, at least the way that I sing it. I'm not 100% sure I'm exactly correct with it, but it's what works, and I was granted initiation. The 7th day, you are gathering these 6 stones, 3 dark and 3 light. They will become the oracle stones, the tongues of the earth, air, and sea. And I'm not going to lie to you all, I was really anxious going into this. I was really worried about building all this up, and then I had read the entire Hecatayan beforehand. I read it front to back. The only thing I didn't read was the invocations, because I have this weird thing where whenever I read a book of magic, I don't read the invocations until I decide to do the working. It's just a thing. I don't really know if anyone else does that. It's a thing I've had since I was like 15, when I got into the Grimoire tradition, but I digress. The anxiety that I felt going up to this point was quite a bit. I was really worried about being rejected, about being denied initiation after doing all of this and being really excited for this book, especially because I felt I'm somewhat still feeling this way, but I felt very disorganized and disoriented in my practice. I felt like I needed a stabilizing force. I needed something to keep me grounded and have a direction to go towards. And I was really hoping this book would be it. And it definitely is. Like, after being granted initiation, it's definitely something that is helping me so much, being grounded, being focused. I have a couple other practices that are completely separate from my Hecatayan work that are also helping me keep grounded and focused. I might talk about those at some point, but they're a bit more private. The anxiety going into it was a lot, but it started to ease as I got closer and closer, as I started getting more radical signs, more potent feelings. I knew that I was going to be granted initiation deep down, but I was worried about being rejected, I guess, and having to restart the practice, especially because I took 9 days off from work. So I was really worried, basically. But on the 7th day, you gather these stones. So I went out around my city, did some urban foraging. I found a lot of cool things other than just the stones, which is awesome. I need to go out more, honestly. But I found the 6 stones that I wanted, 3 light, 3 dark, and I put them in the little bag that I got from the local store. It was a little leather bag. I love those things. And then I consecrated them that night. The next day, though, is the initiation. And it's when you really contemplate it. You go into yourself, you see your fleshy form, you see your spiritual, your astral form, whatever you want to call it. Then you go into your soul and you see your spark. Some people call it the divine spark. I have issues with that term. Just for a bunch of personal reasons, I feel weird about the term divine spark, just for cosmological and theological reasons. I looked into that part of myself, the point of being, the soul, if you will, that underlines it all. And then I decided that I was ready for initiation and that I did want this. So I opened my eyes and I took out the stones, passed them through the fire, the smoke, the water, and I did the invocation. I pulled out a dark stone and I started crying. It was very intense. All this anxiety that I had built up was washed away. The anticipation of it was all meaningful. It all set into place, and I felt right. I felt very ready for this, and I felt overjoyed that I had been accepted. The next day, of course, was the actual initiation, which I won't lie, you're supposed to give your blood to the book. The whole idea behind this, I'm going to clear up some misinformation real quick. You're not sacrificing your blood to Hecate. It's not a blood pact. You're feeding blood to the book. I'm very big on living books. I'll probably make a whole video about it. The book that I'm currently writing, that some people know about, some people don't know about. When I actually have more of a manuscript together, I'll tell you more about it. But one of the rituals in there, you are creating a living book, a living Liber Spiritum, whatever you want to call it. You're making a book of pacts that is alive. And I did kind of steal a little bit from the Hecatayan, but what you're doing with the Hecatayan is you are feeding it your blood. You're feeding the book your blood to bring it to life, to awaken the daimon inside of it, however you want to view it ontologically or cosmologically. And it's a very important part. But I'm not so great with blood for the most part. I kind of get freaked out by it, and while I got a lancer, got my lancet, for my CVS, of course. You know, the most esoteric store is CVS. I was standing over the book and I was like, okay, let's I kept moving my finger away. It took me literally 15 tries, if not more, to actually get a sufficient amount of blood to come out. And I put my blood on the circle and I was like, okay, Hecate, thanks. And then went to my bathroom to wash it off and bandage it. I don't do well with blood. And There is an option in the Hecatayan to just feed it pomegranate juice. You do not need to use your own blood. But I chose to because I am extra, and I'm edgy. That's really it, honestly. I knew I wasn't good with blood, but I wanted to be edgy and do my dark blood offering. There's more blood work in the Hecatayan. I'm not 1000% sure if I will continue using my own blood. Especially for certain other ones where you're doing regular offerings to other spirits. Like I know the next part I have to create a witch's ladder or a Hecatayan rosary. I've been calling it a rosary. The book calls it a witch's ladder. I like rosary more. I'll talk more about that when I actually create it and finish the white blade part of the book. I'm currently working through that right now, and it's going really well. I won't talk about it though until the next part. But yeah, I offered my blood to the book, and I was very squeamish, but I did it. And the actual invocation part was very, very good. I kind of tweaked it a bit more for me personally. I tweaked it so that the invocation, instead of getting louder and louder and louder, it became more inward. I don't really know how to pronounce that other than, or explain that other than it's a very intuitive thing for me. I went external to internal, but I was still speaking the whole time, changing the way that I talked. I have a lot of very subtle things like that, and I think that making your invocations more you is a very important thing in magic overall. I'll probably talk more about it in the next billion years when my next video comes out, but I digress. The actual invocation went really well. The blood part was a bit whatever, but I did appreciate everything going into it. The next step, of course, was to create the inks and the strophalos. I will be making a video that should come out simultaneously with this one. It will be in the iCard above, wherever that is, and in the description down below, so you all can go check it out immediately. But the strophalos is very easy to make. It just, seeing it visually would have been very much helpful to me, so I'm making it visually for you all. But what you would do is you would take a jar, you would fill it with certain items, a feather, snakeskin, seawater, your own spit, fire, which you would take the jar and you would just put it over a candle flame until it got snuffed, and then you would add in some myrrh, incense, smoke. You would do all that, blend it together, and then you would light a black candle on top of it so the wax covers it. It doesn't need to be a black candle or anything. You don't even need to light it on top. You just need to seal it with wax. I lit a black candle on top to seal it. Then you would bury it in the earth. I buried it right outside my house. Then you're supposed to have it underwater. There's no real underwater parts here that are safe for me to put that in, so I made my own. I took a bowl, I filled it to the top with water, and I put the jar in it for the next 3 days. Then you take that out and you tie it to a tree and you leave it for 3 days. That part kind of scared me because after the 3 days, the day after I took the jar down, because I took it off in the morning because I did it at horrible hours, 4 a.m., do not recommend. I took that out, and the next day the branch of the tree that I tied the inks jar to was just torn off. The rest of the tree was fine, but just the branch where the inks was tied to, and I don't know what that means, but it was interesting. Anyways, then you take the inks down to a crossroads. I actually did this June 1st, so only a couple days ago. I went looking all around my city, and I felt led to different places. I finally settled on one crossroads, not too far from me, but I found a whole bunch of others around me if I ever needed to go farther out. You take your inks down to the crossroads, you smash that open, and then you call it into being, and you whirl your strophalos, and you call it to be a part of the strophalos. You name it, and you give it, you tell it what kind of offerings it will receive. And you're supposed to, at 3:33 a.m. receive a dream from your inks where it appears. I, unfortunately, because of the time that I went to sleep, I was not even asleep by 3:33 a.m. and I don't remember any of my dreams from that night because my sleep was so terrible. And that had nothing to do with magic. I have a terrible sleep schedule right now. I'm starting to fix it as of today, actually. But there is a lot of dream work involved in the Hecatayan, so if you have issues with sleep, highly recommend trying to fix them at least around ritual times, where you're doing the Strophalos dream ritual, when you're doing the 3 incarnations of Hecate. I know I'm going to have to do that as well. And since then, I started the White Blade. I've been learning more and more through that. And I've also been learning a lot more about how to utilize the book beyond just what's inside of it. The Oracle Stones specifically. In the book, you really only consult them a few times for specific initiation points. And I decided to do some divination with them last night. You can definitely do divination with them. I'm going to be incorporating them into a larger divination system that I'll be workshopping over the next year. I have that one actually written down. I just need to practice it and get stuff together to actually make it happen. But you can use the Oracle Stones for divination. If you have questions that pertain to Hecate or related aspects of her, you would just do the same thing. Say a similar invocation, pass it through fire, air, and water, then you pull out the stone to answer your question. I got a lot of great answers last night. I did some for my friends as well. Highly recommend it. Use the stones for their purposes. I will also say that they tend to know if you have a question, because when I was holding them, they were very agitated until my friend asked a question that she had, and then they just calmed down. Yeah, that's also the thing about this work, is that it is very potent. The spirits are real in here. Everything that you are experiencing is it's very real. You enter into the state of a very real spirituality. It's all very practical. It's all focused on realness, which is something that I really like. That's something that draws me a lot back to my more traditional practices within my family bloodline with Mexican and greater Latino spiritual practices. A lot of it is very practical. A lot of it is very focused on your practical day-to-day life. And as much as I love the grimoires, they are not practical all the time. And sometimes a lot of the things that these spirits are called upon for has nothing to do with the common person. And so, of course, you have to extrapolate further from that what they can apply to your own life. Whereas the Hecatayan is very much practical. I find it super practical. That doesn't mean that it's easy or that the tools in there are... The tools are actually relatively easy to come by. It's just knowing where to look. And she will provide. But yeah, there's a lot that I can talk about more with this book, but that's basically the first initiation. I'll be putting up that Strophalos making video. If y'all want a Aspergillum making TikTok video, let me know. If I make that, it will also be in the description down below after I make it. I'll also put it in the community tab. I'm going to try to start using that a bit more. But with that all being said, thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you all learned something. I hope that if you are working the Hecatayan, interested in the Hecatayan, that this provides some information for you. If you have any more questions about this part of the Hecatayan, leave it in the comments down below. I want only questions about this part of the Hecatayan, as that is what I have completely worked. If you have questions about later parts, wait until I have worked those parts and those videos come out. But with that being said, y'all, thank you all for watching. My name has been Aiden, and I hope to see you all very soon. Goodbye.